Tim Petrovich here with Marion head football coach Kerry Martin, and it's another football season, another time to get out there and see what the Wildcats can do. And I know coming into this year, you have a lot of skill players back and a lot of defensive players back. I think the biggest question mark probably is the offensive line. 3 of your linemen are playing at SIU now, which is a pretty tall order for people to fill. So I guess the first question would be for the 2011 Wildcats, how's that offensive line looking?
Well, we know that last year's line was a special group, and we know that's going to be the exception, not the rule. To have kids that size and that athletic was the first time we really had that since I've been here. And so we never expected it to be year after year. The thing is, we went to this offense in 2005 because we didn't have very big linemen. We wanted to be able to spread the ball, reduce the number of defenders in the box, throw our screen game, and get our big guys, our so-called big guys, out on the perimeter. And so, even though we're going to miss those guys, and they made life easier, this offense was really built for linemen that don't have to be that big. So, we're going to have to go back to some things we did prior to 2009, 2010, and that's what you got to do. That's what you have to do. And I know every coach is in the same situation. You lose a good quarterback, you lose some linemen, you've got to make adjustments. And fortunately, we've got some good kids back, and we've got some young guys stepping up that I think we're going to do okay on the line.
And so a lot of people wouldn't realize or wouldn't think that, you know, when you talk about gearing your offense towards the personnel, that the plays you call, sometimes you have to gear them towards your offensive line instead of your skilled players.
Oh, exactly. I mean, we did a lot of things in our change of pace offense, in a straight eye formation, because our offensive line could dominate up front. And I'm not saying we won't do that this year. We probably won't do it as much, because what that line is capable of doing, and what how that matches up with your skilled kids goes a long way into what you're going to call on the field.
We talked at the scrimmage last week about the fact that, even though you've got Brett Bradley, Shaquille Ivey, Jay Riley, a lot of those players back on the offensive side of the ball. Cedric Neal at the end of the year last year was running the ball really well. There are a lot more players in that offense. You've been able to incorporate a lot of different players so far this fall. Talk a little bit about that depth on the offensive side.
Well, yeah, at the skill position, we've been able to work in some young kids and work in some other kids. Henry Jones is also, one of those key players from last year. He's working in at H-back with Cedric, and Alex Long is a good offensive player that plays behind Shaquille, and I think Troy Slinker's going to be an impact player for us on the offensive side, at either tight end or fullback. I've got Brax Dallas and Jake Weaver and Danny Gooch and some others playing tight end. I've got Justin Ivey, Shaquille's brother, playing at our Z position, but he's backed up by Brandon Schweitzer and Austin Frasato, and I think two very good football players. Austin's just a sophomore. Brandon's been a big surprise for us as a senior and playing very well. Drew Johnson, Ryan Baer playing the X position behind our leading receiver from last year, Jay Riley. So we feel like we've got some really good, young, talented kids behind some of our starters. And I would anticipate those kids getting on the field some and getting some experience this year.
Talk about the defense. A lot of familiar names coming back on the defense as well. You talked about them. They're playing some offense. Alex Long, Riley was a solid defender. You've got several players that played a lot coming back on defense.
Jake Weaver at safety, Keegan McGee as a defensive lineman, Dylan Ward as a linebacker, Henry Jones is playing some defense again from last year. And we do have some defensive kids back. We lost some big kids there too, with Aaron Adeoye and Colin Somer and Marcus Green. But we've got some good kids back there too, and we've got a little depth up front if we can stay healthy. But this is one of those seasons. We didn't lose everything everywhere. We've got some key kids back in some key spots, but we also have some positions we've got to fill. And right now we feel pretty good going in. I wish we had, another week or so to get certain kids ready, but we don't. And I'm sure Granite City and everybody else on our schedule feels like they wish they had another week, but come Friday it'll be time to play ball game.
Let's talk about Granite City a little bit. The last 2 years, you've been able to take advantage of some early mistakes made by them. 2 years ago up at Granite City, I think they had 2 fumble kickoffs, and you scored twice before they ran an offensive play. Last year, early in their first possession, they fumbled, and you got the ball and went in and scored right away. You've been able to jump on top of them. How important is that, especially in the first game of the season?
Well, it's important in every game, especially in the first game. And I think with a team like Granite City, they're always a big physical team, very good athletes, and they match up physically very well with us. So it's important that we remain opportunistic and take advantage of whatever mistakes they might make, and at the same time don't make any on our side. Don't give them an advantage to, jump out. But we've had some great games against them, some close games against them. They're always physical games, and we have a lot of respect for Granite City High School and the conference they play in.
Their leading rusher from last year's game, one of their top running backs, was just a sophomore. I'm sure he's back. What do you know, if anything, other than maybe last year's film and some other stuff about Granite City?
It's always a tough team to play because the only film we really have of them was week 1 last year, and we know that they do return their quarterback, they do return their leading rusher, and he rushed for 1,000 yards, and he had a big game against us. And they've got some good athletic receivers coming back, so we know that they're always going to put good athletes on the field against us. It's a matter of limiting their big plays, and at the same time, we've got to make some big plays.
What do you do? What does Marion do week in and week out? And I know we talk about this a lot, but it's a long bus trip, opening night, all those things. How do you keep those kids in that kind of routine where they know that this is just another work day and they need to go out and perform?
Well, it's the preparation process begins with Monday's practice and it runs all through the week. The constant reminders, the goal setting that we do in the off season, the summertime. It comes down to taking all this stuff that we've been doing, from camps to lifting to so. It is putting it all together and helping it culminate in these 9 regular season games that are on our schedule, and hopefully resulting in some postseason. And I think our kids have been an excellent road team. We're going to have to be again because 4 of the first 5 are on the road. And we got to look at it as a business trip, and we've got to board that bus and go there with a purpose, with one purpose in mind, and that's coming home.
Darn us media, but a lot of people you talk to feel like Marion is the favorite to win the South 7 Conference. There's some talk about some other teams too, but Marion's right up there near the top. And I know that's a place you want to be. Is that a place you relish being before the season starts, where that target gets on your back right away?
It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter who's at the top preseason. Preseason doesn't mean a thing to me. We're honored that people would put us at the top of the list. There was a time we would never get mentioned in that, but it means nothing. Whether they put you at the top or put you at the bottom, I think the most important thing is where you end up. I want to be there at the end of the season. The final poll, the opening poll it's a guess. I think personally, I've never had a more difficult time placing where I think the South 7 will end up this year than this year. I look at the teams. I think there are so many unknowns, more than I've ever seen in this conference. I think it's absolutely wide open.
More than ever I've seen, I think the top and bottom are so much closer to each other than they have been.
Agreed.
You don't have that Centralia as an easy cakewalk at the end of the year,
sir.
or during the year anymore.
Not at all.
Every team seems to be a lot closer.
I agree. I think what's separating the top team from the bottom team is maybe a play or two or a player or two. I think this thing can hash out any number of ways. I really think this is a wide open race.
And I'll check on this, and this will be the last thing. We'll let you get back because I know you're busy. One of the important things, obviously, going into the start of the season is health. Are the Wildcats fairly healthy coming out of the scrimmage last week in the preseason practice?
In places we're struggling a little bit. In places we're having to work a lot of other kids and work some things, and I'm sure other teams are just like that. They don't make excuses, but we'll be ready. There's no doubt we'll be ready. We've got some kids that are stepping up. I wish we were a little more healthy. We're not, but that's the nature of the game. That's the nature of coaching, and we've got to find a way to overcome that.
But that's something you've had to deal with over the last few years, so you know how to take care of that.
Yeah, it's not anything we haven't seen. Other people haven't dealt with too, and it's just a lot of time that none of the injuries really are serious, but they're day by day, week by week kind of things, and so it's one of those things you got to deal with, and you got to overcome, and you got to win anyway.
Friday night at Granite City, 7 o'clock kickoff. We'll see you there, Coach.
Sounds good.
Kerry Martin, head coach of the Marion Wildcats. For Dateline Marion, I'm Tim Petrovich.